Welcome to the Connected Teamwork Podcast by Growth Leaders Network. How do we learn to truly thrive together? How do we stay connected to our authentic selves, each other, and our purpose as a team, especially when challenged? How do we unlock the deeper levels of group intelligence? Enjoy this episode of the Connected Teamwork Podcast and learn practical tools to evolve the connectedness of your team to its next level.
Hello there, and welcome to the Connected Teamwork Podcast. My name is Carson Heddy. I'm joined today by Karen Wachtenheim, and it is February 5th, 2024. Really excited about today's edition, especially to be able to talk to someone who is a leader in tech, but has a very unique background and perspective. And so excited to dive in. And I think it's also of interesting notes. I know we're not with Hilke today. Hilke's traveling, but Hilke and I were able to meet in person for the first time this last week in Seattle, which was phenomenal. It was amazing. It's great to take these value-added relationships in our lives and that have started out remotely and turn them into face-to-face. So big shout out to Hilke there. Karen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for including me.
Absolutely. Excited to have you. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your background, and your role today at Salesforce?
Sure. My name is Karen Wachtenheim. I'm a regional vice president at Salesforce. I've been here, I'm what Salesforce calls a boomerang. So I started at Salesforce. I was there for 6 years. I left for about a year and then came back almost 2 years ago. So collectively about 8 years. And I started my way in our SMB business, so small business, and was an individual contributor up through our our large business, and then became a leader. So in our mid-commercial space. But I have a really strange background, but interesting background. I started my career in the not-for-profit world, was in hospitality management, was in advertising technology, and then ultimately Salesforce.
It's pretty amazing. And you and I were kind of exploring this too in our, kind of green room conversation, that you and I have a lot of synergies, not only being in tech as leaders, but also having a lot of time under our belts as individual contributors, plus the passion and affinity for the nonprofit space. So really excited to lean in and get your perspective today. We always like to kind of start off getting grounded in your perspective and your philosophies on connectedness. What does connectedness mean to you in a team setting?
Connectedness in a team setting to me means that you're all working towards a similar outcome, and that your leadership has provided you enough psychological safety where you can achieve things together, learn and fail together, and ultimately you understand your individual purpose and how that individual purpose adds value to the greater team, greater good of your team.
Yes. I loved how you framed that up as far as the responsibility that an organization has to really set the tone, but also the importance of understanding the value that you can bring yourself, and then how can you leverage that to amplify others. I'd love to get a feel, Karen, especially your experience having been an individual contributor and then making that move into leadership. What are some of the things that you really drew upon, from your experiences, what you saw work, what you saw didn't, how you wanted to be led when you were an individual contributor, and how you kind of infuse that into your leadership style? What do you think are the most important things that you as a leader do as a result of all that in order to create a culture of connectedness?
I think in my time, I've had the opportunity to work with leaders and work with managers, and there's definitely a difference. the opportunity for somebody to join a team as a leader and take their time to not only get to know each individual, what each individual needs, what drives them, what makes them feel successful, what gives them their purpose every single day, how they like to be communicated with, their learning styles, taking the opportunity to really get to know them as individuals, versus coming in and putting your definition of what the team should be or what the process should be or what the outcomes should be, in my experience, has consistently made me want to work for very specific kinds of people. Um, I thrive under someone who gives solid feedback, constructive feedback. I like that. I ask a lot of questions. I want to know, what am I doing well? Where my shortcomings are? I think I'm pretty self-aware of where my shortcomings are, and so I recognize the things that I need to work on. And so if I'm working for somebody who doesn't necessarily understand how to give feedback, or they're concerned about giving feedback, or they don't want to hurt my feelings, that doesn't allow me to get better. And that doesn't allow me to get to my next level. So as a leader myself, I will consistently ask people, how do you learn? How do you want to be communicated to? What are some of the things that put you in the backseat? Like, what are some of if I were to say something to you in a certain way, would that turn you off, or would that drive you? And as salespeople, you think that everyone is driven by the financial aspect of our role, but some people aren't. And
Right.
so having the understanding that they might be driven to make a greater impact on their community. They may be driven to like happiness, to see, leaders that are people that are in service of others, right? That might be what drives them, seeing their customers happy, successful individuals. And so having a team, being a leader that understands how every person ticks and what makes every person feel good about themselves and want to wake up every single day and do the things that they do, you have to really be able to understand that. And then once you understand that, then again, going back to the psychological safety, then your team is going to want to work hard, not only for you and the business, but for each other. And I've seen managers come in and I think I learned this the first time that I was a leader. I just came in and I was like, all right, we're going to do this and we're going to do this, and it's going to get us to this next level and it's going to be amazing. And I think I shocked everybody, and they all just sort of went into their like turtle shells and didn't come out for like a week. And that was a good learning experience for me, because I was super jazzed about making an impact, and I was super jazzed about change. And I didn't even think about the who moved my cheese change management aspect of that. So again, coming at it and really understanding, where does each individual come from and what makes them tick and what makes them feel happy and successful and supported. Ultimately, you're not really the driver of the connectedness. You're just giving them the platform. And then they can take it in whichever direction they want to take it.
Karen, you said so many things there that I really resonated with. And I think where I want to transition is, diving in a little bit more with you, with what you see are some of the challenges to connectedness. I see a comment here from Bob. Bob, appreciate you being on the show. Sellers are too often treated with an extremely wide brush. They are not all coin operated and uber aggressive. So well said, Bob. Thanks for being with us. You said a lot of things that resonated, Karen. And I think, it all starts with the leadership, how you show up for and with your team. I think a lot of times we'd be remiss not to acknowledge that a lot of leaders, they come in with good intention, but they feel like, for whatever reason, sometimes it can be the pressures from above or external pressures, that they show up kind of being that bull in a china shop. And it's like, hey, here's the plan. Here's what we're going to do. It's not up to you as a leader to have the plan all by yourself. That's why you have a team. Being connected, as you outlined, is so crucial and critical. when I start working with a new team or even new team members, I always send them a survey. And it's, exactly aligned with what you just highlighted. How do you like to be led? How often do you like to meet one-on-one? What are the most important things for you? Especially when I'm meeting with a new team. I always find it that individual contributors fear when the new boss shows up. It's like, man, I'm starting all over. I got to do everything from scratch. And I always want to put my team at ease to say, hey, what do you have momentum in? Were you told you're like a month away from a promotion? Let's make sure we get that to the final end goal, right? I want to make sure that they feel supported immediately, and I know what matters. Furthermore, I'll start like a file on my folks, and at the very top, I always put what they highlight in that survey. So no matter what notes go below and what else is documented during the course of our conversations, I always know their family names, their pet names. I come up with, what they want to do in their career, where they want to go, so that way I can reference that on a regular basis and make sure I am at the pulse of what matters to them. And I think that's really at the heart of what you were highlighting, Karen. We've got to be at the pulse of what matters to our people. That's more important than us just showing up with the plan, and also getting feedback from them on what would make their job better. Those are the types of things that I think it takes a lot of time to focus on. What would you say are some of the other barriers to connectedness? What prevents connectedness? What gets in the way of connectedness, even when it's our intention as leaders to set the tone for it? What can inhibit us when we're trying to be on a path of connectedness?
The biggest, I think there are two. One is, as a leader, being afraid to be vulnerable. If you think that you have to hold yourself up to a higher standard because you're in leadership, that automatically will put you in a failing position, right? It's okay for us to tell our team that, or tell the team that we don't know how to do something, or that we ask for help, or that our kids are sick and I need to go and take the day to be with them. So if we're concerned about showing that we're vulnerable, or we have this perception of ourselves that we need to be seen as higher than, I think that is the first that sets us up for failure, or makes it harder to be connected, because then it makes, at least in my opinion or in my experiences, makes it harder for your team to then come to you when they have vulnerabilities. The second is imposter syndrome. So it all ties back together, right? Can we do this job? Were we really hired for this job? We were hired, but maybe we're not setting the expectation of our leader. And between those two things, it opens us up for thinking more about ourselves and taking the air out of a conversation with our team, or taking the air out of a meeting with our team, or taking the air out of a conversation with our customer, versus putting it back on somebody else, because we're so concerned with, are we doing the right things? Are we holding ourselves up to this higher standard or higher pedestal than we really need to? And ultimately, then the focus is not turned to the person that is on the team that you're leading, but it turns to you. So imposter syndrome and not being vulnerable, or feeling okay to be vulnerable, are the two biggest challenges that I've seen.
And those can go hand in hand.
Right.
I will tell you that for a lot of my early career, I suffered deeply from imposter syndrome, but I felt compelled to create this air of invincibility to mask it, so that nobody would ever discover, like, hey, this guy isn't qualified to be doing what he's doing. And I felt compelled to do that. And I don't think I'm alone in that, right? I also think that the pandemic and the shift to doing a lot of hybrid and remote work helped us tremendously because there has been a mental health crisis over the last few years as a result. And I think owning that And being able to share that, realizing you're not alone in that, being vulnerable, even with our leadership, and being able to share, like, I need help. I need, help, guidance, navigating through these unknown waters and terrain that I've never grappled with before. And I always compare and contrast, early on in my career, I didn't work in a culture where it was really encouraged to be vulnerable. I started out my sales career in a kind of a boiler room call center environment, and it was pound the phones, and this old boys club mentality, and it was toxic. And when my first kid was born, I was basically asked, "Well, you're not going to take time off, are you?" And now I work for an organization and a culture where you're encouraged to take months off as a male, which is mind blowing to me. But I think it's amazing the way companies now are leaning in and meeting people where they are. It's not happening everywhere. Something else you said super important, Karen, and then we're going to take a quick break. But you said something about the feedback that we get, whether that's from leaders, whether it's from colleagues. Sometimes I feel like we're afraid to give constructive feedback or afraid to get it. Like our reaction, not what it could be or should be. And I always like to throw myself at fault. I haven't always been in a place where I've been receptive to feedback. And when I say that, I'm talking about the 20s me, not the 40s me. I think the best thing that happened to me in my career, when I realized I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. In fact, I don't want to be. It's so much better that there's all these other people that I can learn from and borrow from. For the last several years, I have gravitated intentionally toward leaders that would shoot me straight, that would give me genuine, constructive feedback about how to make me better, saying things to me like, what got you here isn't going to get you to the next level. How are you going to level up? Or saying things like, hey, it's great that you have this reputation in your old job. That's not going to work here. We've got to create a new brand for you in this role. And, I owe a lot to great leaders that I've gravitated towards. So I would encourage everyone, if you want to be connected and if you want to have connectedness, be open to getting feedback, but also find the right ways of giving it. Give valuable feedback, not fluff. We're going to take a quick break, and then we will come back with Karen Wachtenheim having a great conversation here today about connectedness in teams and connectedness in sales and sales leadership. We'll be right back.
You are listening to the Connected Teamwork podcast by Growth Leaders Network. Do you want to learn more about building the next level of connectedness in your team? Please contact Growth Leaders Network on LinkedIn. And now, back to the show.
So thank you, everyone, for being on today. We're here with Karen Wachtenheim and talking about connected leadership, connected teamwork. And we had a lot of great dialogue before the break just about how to really create and foster connectedness in teams. What are some of the biggest barriers to connectedness? I want to expand the dialogue a little bit. And Karen, we talked earlier about some of the synergies that you and I have, and I'd be interested in, you've done a lot of work in the nonprofit and charitable space. You alluded also to, sometimes, and Bob, you said this really well, people not being coin operated. Some people want to do work for the greater good. They want to impact communities more. What do you see, Karen, as some of the synergies? And, are there some? What do you see as the intersection between business and social impact, whether in your role today or otherwise?
Well, you mentioned, or we talked about the fact that we both work for organizations where that's at the forefront of the culture of those organizations. And I've been very lucky in my time at Salesforce where there is an opportunity to take time to volunteer for organizations that matter to you, that we're provided with funds from Salesforce that we can give to those organizations. Business really is a platform for change. And, Mark talks about that quite a bit, where doing good and doing good for others if you are in good business, you have the opportunity to make a positive impact on, again, organizations that matter to you, organizations that are going to change our world, organizations and I don't want to say social justice, but areas of opportunity for our communities and cultures to be better. And when businesses are really grounded in their employees and their own community and things that are important in their own employees and their own community, that business impact is greater than I think we could ever possibly imagine. And so I think you and I are both so lucky that we get to work for organizations that allow us to do that and encourage us to do that and want us to do that. Because if that's really a big part of who you are, and you and I talked about in the beginning, like what grounds you and what makes you who you are, that's something that giving back to others and being a servant leader and being in service of others is what grounds me every single day. So if I worked for an organization that didn't allow me to take time and volunteer for the organizations that are important to me, that would be a detriment to the person that I am. And I think would take a little piece of me away from the team that I have the honor of leading, because I wouldn't necessarily come to my authentic self. Like, I love being able to talk about the organizations that I work with, and I love the fact that the team can come and talk about the organizations that they work with, and we do volunteer events with our customers. That's huge.
Yeah.
How many times at any other job or with any other business could you call a customer and ask them if they want to go and do a beach cleaning with you, or go walk service dogs, whatever it is, with your customer. I don't think that that's common.
No.
So I value that greatly.
Yeah, not common enough, that's for sure. Bob, you're full of great comments today. Richard Branson said, put employees first, not customers. If you treat your employees well, they'll treat the customers well. Absolutely agree. And Karen, you hit on a bunch of really important topics here. I think, I've mentioned this, and I feel like it's, I look back on my career journey and to get to do today what I love doing, but for the support of the greater good. I work in a group at Microsoft called Tech for Social Impact. And, my team alone supports over 400 nonprofits in the US and Canada. I was at a summit this past week meeting with hundreds of them. And just to be able to see, we're not experts in the nonprofit space, but to be able to see how technology can empower and enable them to have better outcomes for their constituents, for their organizations, and frankly, for the greater good, finding ways to save time through automation so that they can do more, finding them, ways to save dollars so that they can do more. Those types of things are really impactful. And I take very seriously the resources and the opportunity that we get to invest in that space. And you're working at an organization too, where there's dollar matches for volunteering and for donating. And it's amazing when you work in these types of environments where you feel like your voice is heard and what you care about matters. And you were touching on that, Karen, where you feel empowered at an organization when the things that matter to you and helping your community and doing things for the greater good matters. It is inspiring. I can't say enough great things about that. One of the things too that I think we will continue to see in sales and also just in frankly, career and business in general is going to be artificial intelligence. And I think you and I talked about this briefly in our pre-show in the green room, just about the impact that we're seeing it have today around connectedness, especially with customers and colleagues, but also other organizations that we work with. Any thoughts that you have on the possibilities and maybe the things that we should watch out for as we see the rise of AI?
Oh gosh. I'm not the AI expert in any way.
You're a sales expert and a team expert. I'm curious what you're seeing. And I'm in the same boat. Not an expert around AI, but definitely an expert around what we're seeing and some of the trends and what we want to look out for.
It's interesting. there's all of this buzz about AI, and there's so many organizations out there that have been running their businesses on automation and AI for years.
It's true.
I talked about, like, we have a BDR within our organization, and he's amazing. And he leverages Chat GPT when he's trying to put together, very specific emails or very specific questions to ask customers. That to me is so innovative. It's just making his job 1% easier. He's still doing the work, he's still doing the research, he's still doing the homework, but he's using the tool that's out there to get him a little bit farther and a little in that step ahead, where whatever questions he's asking are going to be that much more impactful to the person that he's speaking to. Businesses have to be really methodical, though, about how they're going to leverage AI. And because it's such a hot topic right now, being mindful that customers or businesses should really evaluate where AI is necessary to sit in their processes.
Well
It's
said.
not going to solve for everything. It's not going to be good for every process that you own. And so how do you create a strategic roadmap where AI is going to either be a quick win for you or a long-term process? But in general, we're seeing, I'm seeing the team that we lead really leverage, like, our own technology. We're really leaning heavily into that, being very creative on how we get questions and answers out to our customers. I think it's a little bit of a race across the board, but also an educational opportunity. We're seeing a lot of customers come and ask us questions, how they can be thoughtful about using AI. And in this economy, how businesses can accomplish the things that they want to accomplish from a financial standpoint much more effectively with the people that they have, and help prop those people up, right? I think people are just inherently, like, they're scared. Oh my God, AI is going to come and I'm not going to have a job. Where it's really, businesses are thinking about, how do I leverage something that's out there that's going to make us smarter, make us move faster, and help my employees and help my teams be better at the jobs that they have with the new tools that are coming out there. So I think it's really great. We're seeing a lot of customers take their employees and really educate them on how to use solutions that are out there, AI solutions that are out there, so that they can be more successful, and are also thinking about how to prop them up from a career perspective. Okay, you want to get to this next level. This is something that you might want to be thinking about how to figure out to leverage that, versus it's going to be some sort of, like, misstep.
I wish I had counted how many times in that you said customers, people, employees, lifting people up. I think the summary there, Karen, is that people and authentic, genuine connection is at the heart of everything. And if AI can be used in a way to complement that, to show up better for people, that's where it's going to be really valuable. And then I would steer away from the things that become inauthentic, become a detriment to those relationships.
For sure.
We're coming to a close here shortly, but I'd love to get a thought. I always like to kind of end with the practical application. For the audience today, how do you really see connectedness? What are some things that that people today can do to better the connectedness in their teams and in their lives, and especially amidst big changes? I find oftentimes it's hardest to keep that steady hand on the wheel during times of significant change. So, any practical advice that you can give our viewers today?
Oh, if you're a leader, keep the lines of communication open. Make sure that you're communicating early and often in a way that, even if it's a hard conversation to have, that's caring. You're coming from a place of caring and kindness. And if you're on a team, trusting your leader, trusting yourself, trusting your team. Leaders, we're not Batman or, Wonder Woman. So tell us, help us help you. But we're all human. We're all human. So if we're transparent, we're collaborative, we're communicative, that leads to a more trusting relationship and a more trusting environment. And we'll all just be, it sounds cheesy, but I think we'll all just be better for that. We can't get anywhere if we're hiding our cards.
I love that. That's very powerful. And I want to highlight Bob's comment too before we sign off. Best new manager advice he ever got.
Yeah.
Manager is manage yourself out of a job. Grow your team so it's able to function without you. It's so key, because if you're jumping in and you feel compelled to be the hero all the time, you're doing your team a disservice. You need to empower and enable your team, trust them to do what they need to do. We've got a thing that we say here at Microsoft in leadership around model, coach, care. Model the behavior, coach your team, and then show you care. Meet them where they are. Those are the types of things that can really help create and nurture a culture of connectedness. Karen, thank you so much. Really enjoyed the conversation today.
Thank you.
Wish you well in all your endeavors, and thanks for being on. And for our audience today, thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon here next Monday on the Connected Teamwork podcast. If you've got any upcoming topics or you'd like to be a guest, please feel free to reach out. Always looking to learn more on this journey from experienced leaders on how they are creating connectedness in their teams. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Carson. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Connected Teamwork podcast by Growth Leaders Network. Take a moment to reflect on what you learned today that can help build your team. Also, if you like, think about one of your team members and what you appreciate about them. Let them know. Enjoy connecting more deeply to what is great about them. And see you next time at the Connected Teamwork podcast.